So I'm going to talk about user experience monitoring here. I'm Daniel Kahn. I'm working as technology strategist for Dynatrace here in Linz. There research on different technologies, and from time to time I have the chance to go to conferences and talk there about what I found out. I want to start with a question here. So who do you think monitors your site 24/7 already? So you have actually a monitoring in place already. Or um, who knows first when your site performs bad? Maybe, but someone else knows even earlier. And who will penalize you for a bad user experience? The users? But before? Yeah, Google. Right. So it started in in 2010. We see that Google started to factor in site speed into the ranking algorithm. This means site speed started to matter on how where you appear in the search results. In 2015, we started this whole mobile get-on thing where Google started to say, okay, if a site is more mobile friendly and you are on a mobile device, it will be ranked higher in the results. And lately, we have this year, this may be the future, Google is testing a red slow label. So I don't know, do you want to be one of those? Doesn't look so much as, I don't know, I wouldn't click on that. So if it even says me, it will be slow when I click on that. So let's look at some metrics Google factors in from the performance perspective, actually. There is the bounce rate. I will talk about this later. The speed of the site, the mobile friendliness, and the usability. What is the bounce rate? So you search for your flux capacitor because you just want to go back to the past maybe, and you find this result here on eBay. They have it, and you go to eBay and by clicking on that, and you see, oh, it's just a replica. It's not the real one, and instantly you click go back in your browser, and because it's not what you wanted, and obviously. Google will know that you just clicked on a link and immediately came back. So most obviously this site didn't provide what the user was actually looking for, and so bounce rate is an important metric. Many paid sites do, for instance, let's look at those sites where you can look up phone numbers or such. They hide the information somewhere behind something, but to keep you longer on this page, because if you bounce back very quickly, this would harm them in their search results. This is one metric. Speed. Who knows web page speed test already? Yeah, most of you. So very important tool. Use it on your sites really. And there are two metrics that are relevant here. First, it's the first byte. It's the time to first byte. Time to first byte means how long does it take when the request has been sent until the server returns anything. So until this first byte comes back to the client. This metric tells you actually there is something about the responsiveness of your web server and also of the network. So this is really this is something you have to optimize with your data center and with those guys that do your infrastructure. How fast can the web server respond? You can do something to get this faster, for instance, using caching. So if you use caching, your content will be much faster returned, so you don't have this round trip around the database. And then there is the second metric. It's the start render. Start render means when can the browser actually start to show anything on the screen? So the user clicks on the page, comes to the page, there is this blank page, and then how long does it take until there is content building up on the page? makes sense because then it's likely that the user will stay and wait for the rest of the data to appear. But looking for a long time at a blank page is never good. So, and I'd say this is quite, those two values here are quite good. So with, yes, 200, 300 milliseconds to time to first byte and start render with about, 700, 800 milliseconds, we're good here. And these are metrics that are actually really factored in. You can test it as well in your Chrome developer tools, by the way. Here you have it. It's the time to first byte. Everyone knows Chrome developer tools already, yeah, right. Mobile friendliness is another thing. You can test it. So we could do a separate talk about responsive design and mobile friendliness. You can test it with Google at least by using the this Google Speed and Performance Console. You type in the URI you want to test, and Google will crawl over it and look how mobile friendly is this page. And here we see, for instance, this is our blog of Dynatrace, and here we see that it's quite okay, but still it says, okay, the tab targets could be bigger. So it's, I would say a quite in-depth test it is doing there, because it even shows on how big are those targets you click on. Now we see what metrics actually are important, but what does such a crawler actually do on our site? And I have a question for you. How much percent do you think is of the traffic you get on a bigger site is dedicated to crawler traffic? I don't know, 20%? 30%? You have to start to show your hands. 40%? 50? 60? I don't care. So we have this customer, it's BVA auctions, and we see that 67% of their traffic they get is dedicated to crawler traffic. That's a lot, really. So you really run much of your data center for Google, actually. So, and at this customer, we even proceeded a little bit and looked at, what are those robots actually doing? And you can do this, for instance, with our product. And here you see those different. So this is all crawler traffic, and you see which device it is actually testing. So you see it comes with WebKit, it comes from a Samsung device. So it really tests your site, not only just going to the site, fetching the content, indexing it. No, it really looks into the site with many, many different browsers. And then even you see, here you, exactly. You even see that it goes into some pages again and then looks at them with JavaScript turned on, actually. So it's not true that, so I was telling this for a long time, maybe it was true for some time, that crawlers don't execute JavaScript. That's wrong today. So those crawlers get along very well with JavaScript as well. What we then found out is that it actually even revisits pages again if they turn out to be slow. So it really keeps track of, oh, this page, this single page, not site, the page was slow, so let's revisit it again. So it really keeps track about this information as well. And and here we see, for instance, we have something in place. We will look at this a little bit later. It's a user, it's a JavaScript agent on the browser that really keeps track of what the user is doing on the page, and we can also keep track about what is a crawler actually doing. And the crawler will load this page regularly, as it was a regular user, will click on targets and will really use this page. So it does really a thorough browsing here. That's nice. But what happens when things go wrong? So, for instance, you have this data center here, and then you have this CDN. Everything is great. It's very, very expensive. And then you have here your add to cart button. And when the user now clicks on this button, he gets this. What does this mean? How useful is this whole data center here? Everything. This site is not a bit broken, it's completely, utterly broken. So it won't work. And so it may make sense to take care that this doesn't happen. I took the time to kind of, try to find out the effects of problems on websites, and I have this. Those are, I would say, typical problems: slow response times, page errors, and bad usability. Typical problems on a website, right? And here, they're supposed to be differently colored. Yeah, I see it somehow. And here you have all those consequences. Nice. And now I proceeded and tried to find out, okay, which problem causes which consequence actually. And the interesting thing is that this is some kind of self-enforcing thing here, you know, because what we see here, for instance, if you go here, you have a slow response time on your site, and you have frustrated users, actually, because the site is slow. This increases your bounce rate. In turn, this also decreases your sales, but the increased bounce rate also causes a bad search engine rank and a decreased number of visitors, which in turn again decreases your sales. So bad performance, and you can play this with every circle here. So bad performance has really a multitude of effects to your website. Your site is not just slow, you really have a problem when it's slow, because it has consequences on the user side. So when I asked before, who sees it first, right? The user see it. But when search engines find out about it, it doubles the consequences here. And that's really a problem. And so the obvious question is, how could we be quicker than search engines and be proactively testing if our site is slow, if a site performs well? And there we enter this field of user satisfaction. So how do we measure satisfaction? We have a quite simple metric here in place. It's our user experience index. It divides users in 3 classes: in satisfied, tolerated, and frustrated. And I will show you now how this user experience index is actually calculated. So first we have the AppDex. Who knows the AppDex? AppDex is we were part of the standardization around this AppDex. Makes sense. It's a metric that tells you how quick a website responds. And there is a, let's say, 2 seconds. These are all assumptions, by the way. You say, okay, 0 to 2 seconds, the user is satisfied. 4 times the satisfied value is tolerating, and everything above that is a frustrated user. That would be great, but I said we are measuring response time of a website here. What might be the problem here? So in 2016, single page applications where the site only loads once, and then everything is done and rendered via JavaScript. There we see the AppDex is nice, but won't give us much information about how quickly the site responds and if the user is satisfied, actually. So this is one metric, but we see that we are not done with that using the AppDex. But for a long time, AppDex was the one metric you use for measuring user satisfaction on a page, and many APM tools still show it as key metric. Another thing that is important is errors. I think we agree that if you see something like this, when you do something with anything on the web, you will be frustrated. Makes sense. So it makes sense to track errors as well on the different channels. But it's not only the errors. It makes also sense to look at in which context those errors really occur. So if we have this click path here, you see there a user is clicking through a page, and if there a mobile application, and if the error would occur here, and we see that the user actually is proceeding with what he's doing, he might be still satisfied, right? Because, yeah, obviously he didn't leave. But if we have something like this, if the last thing we see from a user is an error, I'd say this is not so good, because this is for sure a user that we lost here, because the user said, oh, I don't buy this now because it just doesn't work. So errors and the context of how errors are actually occurring plays a role in how satisfied is a user actually. We know him. It's Saul. He's standing somewhere in the pampa of Albuquerque, and he doesn't expect the best bandwidth when he now takes out his mobile phone, because most obviously he's used to have very bad connectivity where he is currently. So blindly looking at connectivity and bandwidth and speed doesn't make sense to factor it completely into the user satisfaction, because maybe this user is standing somewhere in the Australian outback and is used to slow websites. So we really have to factor in the fact how fast is the connection the user has. And this is what we actually do with our JavaScript agent we have on the browser, for instance. We really send something over the wire to find out how fast is this connection after all. And after that we can say, okay, what does a user actually expect from a website in terms of speed? So now we are here with our user experience index. We have the app tags. We have errors we factor in. We have the user environment. And we have the user behaviors, so the context of the user. Does this make sense so far? I drink. And so this is how it actually looks like. This is the user experience index. We are working towards making this a standard to have it so that you have it in different products. We have it in our product, and I'll show you now how this looks like in action. So this is one of our dashboards we have here. And again, you see here, we have those satisfied users here. We have tolerating and frustrated, and we see how they distribute internationally over the globe. And there you can easily say, okay, there is something going on in Australia. There's always something going on in Australia. Australia is really, really always a slow spot for some reasons, and can react to that, actually. And you can even drill down into that. I'll show you this later. We have another dashboard here This is from the Dynatrace Rich client, where you really see those spots again, and you see those circles where you see, okay, how satisfied are the users. If there is a red dot in there, there's something going wrong. And there you have the bounce rate, for instance. You can even factor in the conversion rate, where you see, okay, what is a conversion, and do our users actually convert? How long are our users on the web, on the page, for instance, and the user actions that run over time over this site. On the web UI again, and that's, we call it Ringelspiel, because it's quite nice. You can, on the web UI, you can drill into every circle and every circle segment you have here. So you can, for instance, say, okay, I click here, and when you click here, you have all frustrated users, and then see the different client types they're coming from. So you can even test if, okay, we have 5.4% frustrated users, which clients are they using? Maybe they are using one client that is really, we see there is something going wrong. Mobile devices, for instance. There's something going on the mobile device, and our users are frustrated here. Like that, for instance. Here we have these frustrated users, and we see that Internet Explorer users, are frustrated, but they're used to be frustrated, actually. So that's still okay. So, and then, for instance, there is something called omnichannel. That's quite interesting, because we say that users actually expect the same user experience between all different channels. So if they switch between channels, it should be always the same user experience. So it makes sense to have a dashboard where we see actually all those different channels, and see how they really correlate, how this works, how here we see all those web users and the user experience they have. Then we have those mobile users, and see if there's something going wrong. Those mobile app users. Does this make sense? I see I'm running short a little bit today, so I hope you've. Yeah, I hope you've. Yeah, we can, because I'm at the Q&A. I think it was long at Tallinn for some reason. Do you have questions? Yes?
I'm really interested in the fact that the bounce rate that Google measures, what exactly do they count as bounce? Is there kind of time, or, I mean, in Google Analytics, they say if there's a second interaction, then it's not a bounce, which you can use bounce avoidance by firing an event when the user scrolls to a certain decision. But how does Google measure that for the search ranking?
No. They for sure don't use Google Analytics for that, because you would harm your own page if you use Google Analytics to. No one knows, as with everything of Google, but it's a time threshold, I would say. I was having something in mind, 7-8 seconds actually, that you spend on the page. Yeah, 7-8 seconds. So that's the reason why all those telephone providers have something you have to do on the website to really get on the content, why you don't see the telephone number right there, because then everyone would bounce back within a few seconds. So that's the reason for that. Yeah, but still, if you find the right answer there, you stay for a long time. So, or you're so quick with copy and paste. So they have so much content in there, and so many people really staying for a long time on the sites, that this completely, Yeah, it depends on all users that are entering this page, and given the how many developers on one single day enter Stack Overflow, uh, it makes sense that they really have a really high ranking there.
The metric you introduced, the user experience index, can you give us some insights on the current process? So, like on the state of the standardization, because right now you showed us what it consists of.
Yeah, we are working on that. The problem is that you have to factor in not only the user actions on the browser, but also what is happening in the backend. So track everything and all those requests, the Ajax requests. This is what it does actually. I didn't cover that so much, I would say. So what the user experience index and the JavaScript agent on the browser actually does is if you do anything on the page, maybe click on a button that fires some Ajax request. We measure how long does it take for the request to really come back and give how long does it take till something changes in the browser. So, and this is not so easy to track as AppDex, and for that you need a JavaScript agent installed, and it's not possible to measure it from the outside. You have to have something on the page. So we are still working on getting this into a standard there.
Which organization are you focusing on to standardize it? Or are you submitting it somewhere, open for proposal?
It's WSU3C we are working with usually. We also the AppTech thing was also developed together with them, for instance. We are also talking with those big vendors like Google, for instance. There are some metrics we're talking about, so this is an ongoing process here.
So,
yeah, it's 50 minutes. Yeah, I'm sorry, but 10 minutes ahead. So, thank you.